Pull up a chair, friend. Pour yourself a heavy mug of black coffee, because trust me, you're gonna need it. Welcome to tonight's Explainer. I've spent more years gripping a steering wheel on lonely, pitch-black highways than I can even count. And let me tell you, the road just changes when the sun goes down. We're gonna dive into some late-night warnings coming straight from folks who drive the graveyard shift. These aren't just spooky stories, all right? They are survival lessons. Let me show you exactly what I mean.
Why have humans become so smart now? Just read that again. Let that chill really settle into your bones. That is not a question asked by a person. It's the sound of ancient, terrifying frustration. It's literally the sound of a trap snapping shut on empty air. Keep this quote in the back of your mind as we get into our first lesson.
Look, this is your entire world out there. It's 3 a.m., zero cell service, just your headlights carving this tiny little slice of reality out of absolute pitch-black nothingness. The isolation, it's hypnotic. When you're hauling tons of steel down an empty interstate for 10 hours straight, your mind starts to play tricks on you, you know? You see shadows dance, you convince yourself, hey, it's just exhaustion. But the terrifying reality of the long haul is that sometimes, well, it isn't a trick at all.
Warning, don't trust your eyes. The thing in the forest.
Okay, so let's look at a driver named Imran. He's navigating this incredibly desolate route from Peshawar to Quetta. We're talking a stretch where for hours, there is absolutely no civilization, no hotels, no help, just you and the jagged mountains. Now, he was fighting what we out here call waking sleep. You know, eyes open but your mind's totally drifting when he catches a small shadow right at the edge of his headlights. He rolls past it, telling himself it's just a jackal or maybe a trick of the light. But when he checks his rearview mirrors, he spots a child, maybe 6 years old, just standing completely still on the side of the road. Human empathy is a powerful thing, right? Fearing for this little kid's safety in the freezing dark, Imran makes a fatal mistake. He hits the brakes and he puts his rig in reverse.
But as he gets closer, absolutely none of the details add up to a lost boy. For one, he doesn't even flinch at the roar of a massive diesel engine right next to him. And when the headlights finally wash over him, Imran sees unnaturally pale skin and deep, empty black pits right where his eyes should be. On top of that, his clothes were spotlessly clean. I mean, completely untouched by the freezing dirt and dust of the mountain. And then, the child finally spoke. He asked Imran to step out of his cab and walk into the pitch-black woods. But his voice, man, it wasn't human. It sounded heavy, like two massive rocks grinding together.
This entity just kept insisting. "Just come outside once," it said, pointing into the totally impenetrable darkness of the dense trees. Imran's gut is absolutely screaming at him at this point to stay in the safety of his cab. He looks past this pale boy, straining his eyes to see into the blackness where those headlights couldn't quite reach. I want you to just take a second and imagine staring into that void. What exactly was hiding in the shadows behind the child?
Well, this is what he saw. Connected to the lower back of the boy was a thick, black, fleshy tube. Think of it like a massive umbilical cord or some kind of living pipe extending straight back into the pitch black of the forest. And it was moving slightly, sort of pulsing, as if something was alive inside it. So the child? It wasn't a child at all. It was just an appendage, a lure. Literally a puppet being operated by a massive, unseen predator lurking deep in the trees, just waiting patiently for some sympathetic driver to step out of their truck.
When Imran actually realized the horrifying truth of what he was looking at, he pointed at the tether. And the entity's face instantly contorted into this pure ancient hatred. The whole disguise dropped, and in that grinding, heavy voice, it uttered this exact phrase, "Why have humans become so smart now?" It was the irritated realization of a predator that had clearly hunted people this way before, probably many, many times. Imran didn't wait around. He slammed that massive truck into gear, spun the heavy tires in the gravel, and bolted out of there as the sun began to rise. He actually quit long-haul driving shortly after this. Can't say I blame him.
Moving on to warning 2, never open your doors. The giant in the corn.
So this next warning comes from an anonymous driver working the Multan to Swabi route. Picture this scenario for a second. It's nearly 3 a.m. The driver pulls off the main highway onto this totally desolate link road surrounded by massive, dense cornfields. He just needs to pull over for a quick bathroom break, right? He parks the rig, he turns off the engine, and this silence is just deafening. Then, tap. He ignores it. Tap. It sounds exactly like a pebble hitting the metal door of his cab. He reaches for his door handle, and then a third, unmistakable tap. Someone or something is standing outside in the pitch black, demanding his attention.
When he finally peered out his window, his blood absolutely ran cold. Now, the coin stalks lining that road were exceptionally tall, easily 8 feet high, but standing dead in the middle of those stalks was a silhouette, just the top of a head with thick black hair, totally motionless. For it to be visible above the stalks like that, whatever was standing there had to be at least 10 feet tall. It didn't speak, it didn't make a move, it just stood there, towering in the dark, waiting for him to crack open that door.
The driver's survival instinct kicked into overdrive. He didn't ask questions, he just dropped it into gear and floored it, driving totally blind with panic, until the sun finally came up and he reached a crowded truck stop. But when he stepped out to inspect his rig in the daylight, his breath caught in his throat. Right behind the cab, where the trailer connects, the heavy metal bodywork was gouged with deep, violent scratches. Something incredibly powerful, with massive sharp claws, had tried to tear its way into the truck as he sped away. If he had opened his door when he first heard that tapping, well, he definitely wouldn't be around to share this warning with us today.
And that brings us to warning 3. The monsters are human. The CB Stalker.
Now, the paranormal is terrifying for sure, but here's the thing. Sometimes the worst monsters don't hide out in the woods, and they aren't some ancient, towering entities. Sometimes they drive on the asphalt right beside us. This timeline here comes from an American woman who drove the U.S. highways back in 2003 with her partner. Their CB radio handles were Northern Exposure and Ninja Draft. Over that summer, they started hearing this weird voice on the radio calling himself Maniac. He seemed to always be nearby, constantly tracking their purple truck. And right around this time, dark rumors were swirling about a serial killer targeting women at truck stops. Finally, on Labor Day, Maniac actually agreed to meet them in person at a Flying J in Tennessee.
So they waited inside the diner, but Maniac never showed up. When they were walking back to their rig in the dark, they spotted this, a battered black Peterbilt bobtail truck. It had a massive heavy iron brush guard welded to the front of it, and inside the cab, illuminated by nothing but a sinister red light, a man sat there just watching them with this sickening, horrific smile on his face before quickly yanking the curtain shut.
Literally moments later, the entire truck stop erupted in flashing lights and sirens. They discovered exactly why Maniac hadn't come inside the diner. While they were sitting there waiting, he had set up a horrific trap, a calculated, absolutely gruesome murder. He had bound a woman with chains and thick tape, hiding her right in the blind spot between another innocent driver's truck and trailer. Then he unlatched the trailer hitch. When that driver returned and pulled his rig forward, the trap was sprung, crushing the victim instantly. You see, Maniac didn't just want to kill. He wanted to play a deeply sick psychological game. He wanted them to know exactly how close they were to a very real, breathing monster.
By the time they looked back, that black Peterbilt was long gone. Fast forward a few months to February 2004. They're parked at a desolate stop near New Orleans, and suddenly their CB radio crackles to life. It was him. He was actively taunting them, bragging about his horrific crimes. The woman's partner grabbed the mic and demanded to know why he didn't show his face in Tennessee. Maniac just laughed this bone-chilling laugh, saying there were too many police around and mockingly warned them to keep the woman safe. Then, he delivered this exact quote over the crackling static. "I play with them. Only God or the devil can judge me."
As those chilling words just hung in the heavy air, a cloud of dust kicked up right in front of their rig. The black Peterbilt rolled past them at a painfully slow crawl in the darkness. The man inside gave them that exact same terrifying smile. And right there, painted crudely and blood-red on the heavy metal door, was a single word, Maniac. The storyteller actually quit trucking for good shortly after this incident, and honestly, it makes sense, because out there on the midnight blacktop, you never truly know who is driving right beside you.
Let's look at the final rules of the road. How to survive the graveyard shift.
Listen to me. If you ever find yourself driving the graveyard shift, these are the absolute laws you live by. First, do not stop for figures on the shoulder, no matter how helpless or lost they look. If you hear a sudden tapping on your glass in the middle of nowhere, you completely ignore it. You never ever open your doors to the dark. Out there, you have to trust your gut, not your empathy. Empathy is a human trait, and as we've learned tonight, what's waiting for you out there might not be human at all. Remember, arriving alive is your one and only metric of success. You just keep the wheels moving.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought as we close out tonight's explainer. Just look at the question on the screen. Really think about that crushing isolation.
Think about the towering giant hidden in the corn, that living tether stretching into the forest, and the monsters actively listening to you on the radio. If you are out there and your engine dies tonight on an empty road, who is going to find you first? Stay safe out there, friends, and keep your doors locked.